So my name is David Smith. I'm Professor of Marine Biology at the University of Essex, and I am Director of the Coral Reef Research Unit and also the current Director of the taught Master's course in Tropical Marine Biology. My research is based all on the ecophysiology of corals, and my major interest is how corals are influenced by environmental change. I focus on corals primarily because they're the organism that provides structure and complexity in the marine environment, which supports huge amounts of biodiversity, about 25% of all fish species. So by understanding the biology of a coral, then you're really working at what we call the framework species, and that coral then obviously provides habitat for all fish. Fish supports lots of other biodiversity, but also food security for many millions of people. And we know that corals are extremely sensitive to environmental change. That environmental change could be obviously climate change, increasing temperatures in the Earth's oceans, but also ocean acidification, but also relates to short-term changes like the well-publicised recent El Nino, which caused many reefs around the world to die. So there's a real big push at the moment to understand which corals are likely to survive, how we can increase the tolerance of the most sensitive species, and how can we best protect coral reefs from this sort of global phenomena of climate change. One of the things that we've been trying to do is sort of move away from the traditional coral reef settings, which are these beautiful blue, clear water environments where we know corals do really well, to trying to understand how corals survive in more extreme environments. And the idea is that there are environments around today we call marginal systems that actually are home to corals, but these marginal systems have really quite extreme conditions, extremes in temperature, relatively low pH, which are a real sort of bit of a window into the future. So if we can understand which corals survive in those marginal systems, how they survive, can we transform that information into protecting reefs more generally? And we think, for example, if you are able to grow corals in more extreme environments, then you probably increase the resilience of reefs generally, and that's what we're trying to do. So moving away from sort of growing corals in nursery grounds in most optimal conditions to growing corals in more extreme environments and try and force evolution in a sense to a more resilient type. That was on a family holiday actually to northern Spain, just a bog standard holiday. And when I was on the beach, there was an advert, learn to dive in 3 or 4 days, and my mum and dad pushed me into that really. I was only, I think 12, 13 school year, something like that. Certainly I got the bug at that age, and then pretty much every year when I went on holiday, mostly around the Mediterranean, I had an opportunity to go diving, and then I went to university and did lots more diving, lots more expeditions, and I've done a lot of dives every year since. Right, okay, that's a difficult question to answer because actually there are a number of reasons why I would choose my best place to dive. One of the things I really enjoy is quite big, dramatic seascapes. When you're in the water and you look around you and you see those sort of big structures in the water. And when I was leading our expedition out to Belize, there was a place called the Blue Hole, and we dived down to about 15 meters. It was on our last day of the expedition, 10-week expedition. The fisherman said that we should go and look at it, and there was literally much like a black square on the sea floor. That's what it looked like. Someone had painted a black square, and you dived down through this black square, which was an opening of about 2 meters, and you just fell out into an underwater cave. And this underwater cave was probably about 30 or 40 meters wide, and it was the most amazing, surreal situation you could ever possibly be in. And you could swim around. It went down to about 60 meters, we didn't go that deep. But you could go to the edge of the cave and big shaft light coming through and divers falling through, loads of 30 or 40 sharks swimming around the bottom. It was just awe-inspiring. So certainly that's one of the most memorable times. And lecturing, you can really divide into three different things really. There's teaching, and then there's research, and then there's the management of both those things. I like both teaching and research. I love research where you can come up with an idea and you can sit with your colleagues and identify questions that need to be answered. My research, I hope, and what I really enjoy is trying to find solutions to problems that need to be solved. So it's not just understanding biology for the sake of biology, but actually trying to find a solution to a problem. I really enjoy that. The best part of teaching is where you're personally excited about the topic that you're teaching, and sometimes the subject might not sound so exciting, but if you're personally engaged with it and you can get the enthusiasm of the class and you see the excitement on people in your class who really start to enjoy it and start to ask questions and the lectures become interactive and discursive, I think that's the best part of it, because you feel like then you've made a bit of a difference and that you've actually generated a bit of enthusiasm. And when people come up and ask you questions after your lecture and they're really excited about the opportunities to learn, I think that's probably the best part. It's my opinion that if you're passionate and engaged in a subject, you can do whatever you want to do. I don't think there's any limitations to what you can do. So I suppose my advice would be to read, to look for subject matter that really interests you, become passionate about a subject, to not see reading around a subject as homework or work, essentially. It's your passion, it's your hobby. Volunteer as much as possible. I think it's become a very competitive job. Even if you've got a good degree, it's still competitive. So fill out your CV, give yourself an opportunity to go and talk to people, contact people, contact researchers, drop them an email, and get engaged with the subject matter. I suppose the importance of keeping your eye a little bit into the future, horizon scanning, and making sure that that you have quite a clear strategy about what you're doing and making sure you're effective with your time. Sometimes it's easy to spend a lot of effort on the smaller things and you miss the most important things. So prioritising what you do would be really important. Also, as a researcher, making sure that you are not just playing catch up, that you try to get in front of the curve and you look to the future and see what problems are emerging, and you become in front of the curve in that sense. So horizon scanning, being, I suppose, also during those early days, then I was probably a bit insular in my approach to research. I would look to my field and I wouldn't look into other fields to see how I could translate that knowledge into my own. I think that's probably important. So I think being broader in my research and not being afraid to look into new disciplines and crossing that information to my own, I think probably. In terms of the biggest problems that we face, well, they're numerous. It's well documented about some of the pollutions that we're causing, not just plastics but other types of pollutants. I always see marine biology and its biodiversity really, I think, as a bit of a bank, and we're kind of drawing on our reserves a little bit. And generally in most aspects of life, then we tend to live to our means. We don't go overdrawn all the time, but we're doing that in marine biology and taking more than we can actually take, and we should live sustainably. And I don't think there's huge amounts of differences to our lifestyle that we need to do to make a big difference, but we need to do them now. And I do also believe that as a parent, you do everything you can to make sure that your children have a better life than you do, and that's one of the points. But we do all that and then we degrade the most important system on the planet. So it just seems odd. I think we need to start to build a much more stronger grassroots understanding of why marine systems are important, and collectively we can make a difference. I would encourage people not to look at the vastness of the marine system and think, well, what can I do as an individual when the system is so big? I would think collective action is important. I think policy needs to change to make sure that governments actually start to do something about protecting marine systems. And again, the other problem with marine biology is that the vast majority of marine environments is largely unprotected because it doesn't actually belong to any one nation. The high seas, for example, don't belong to any one country, and who therefore has the political will to go and do something about it? Well, collectively, as collective countries and through the UN, for example, then we could do something about it. So, but everyone plays a little part in that role, and I think increasing people's awareness of why marine biology is important as a life system, you know, in terms of climate regulation and the air that we breathe and the food that we eat, is extremely important. And together, as small groups, community-led projects can make a big difference. And when those communities come together, then policy will change, and I think it needs to be from the bottom up. So get involved.